Tonight, as the world outside quiets down and the shadows grow long, you're invited to join me on a journey into the corners of history that few dare to wander after dark. There is a peculiar magic in these hours, a hush that settles over the streets, a softness that creeps through your windows, a gentle invitation to slip away from the anxieties of today and let your mind drift far, far back in time. This is a night for secrets, for stories, for the kind of history that doesn't shout in textbooks, but whispers, softly, curiously, sometimes scandalously, right into your dreams. So, find your most comfortable spot. Perhaps you're curled under the covers, the familiar weight of your favorite blanket hugging your shoulders. Maybe there's a faint hum of a fan nearby, or the subtle white noise of distant city life, lulling you toward that sweet place between wakefulness and sleep. Close your eyes, or leave them half open, and let the screen fade as the story takes over. Tonight, I'll be your companion and your guide, a gentle voice meandering through the strange, forgotten corridors of the past, shining a lantern on. Truth more incredible than any fiction. And where, you might ask, are we going tonight? But that would spoil the adventure. All I can promise is that this journey will reveal the secret lives of men and women who shaped our world in ways both breathtaking and bewildering. We will wander through marble halls lit by candlelight and cross ancient plazas still echoing with the ghosts of ambition and betrayal. You may discover that history is not just a dusty collection of names and dates, but a living, breathing tapestry of passion, power, love, and loss. Let's begin with a confession, a small but potent truth. Not all those who wore the world's holiest crowns were saints. Some were tyrants, sinners, schemers. Some shaped destinies, not with prayers and compassion, but with desire, greed, and a hunger for domination that would make even the most hardened conqueror blush. Tonight, we lower our lantern and peer behind the velvet curtains of the Vatican itself, a place so often wrapped in grandeur and sacred tradition. What if I told you that within those sacred walls, history played out not as a hymn, but as a feverish, tangled ballad of vice and virtue, of ambition and downfall? What if the men who ruled there, supposedly chosen by God, were sometimes anything but divine? Picture it. The echoing halls of Rome, marble underfoot, incense swirling through the air. Beyond those heavy doors, secrets, scandalous and ancient, waiting for centuries to be unearthed. Imagine the laughter of cardinals at midnight banquets, the rustle of silken robes in candlelit corridors, the conspiratorial whispers exchanged in the shadows, and the thunderous crash of ambition against the stone walls of tradition. Tonight you'll meet popes who treated the keys to heaven like gambling chips, who sold forgiveness for gold and reveled in excesses worthy of emperors. Some you may have heard of in passing, others history would rather you forget. But all left marks, deep and dark, on the legacy of the Church and on the very shape of Europe. And that's only the beginning. Because just as you think you've glimpsed the worst the human soul can offer, we'll leave the candlelit crypts of the Vatican behind and slip east, across the parched and whispering deserts, to a city shrouded in myth, Babylon. Imagine standing before walls so massive that chariots could race along their tops, gazing at gates glazed a brilliant blue and studded with golden lions. There, in a world of dust and dreams, another legend awaits. The story of a garden suspended. In the sky, green and impossible, watered by ingenious machines and perhaps by the longing of a homesick queen. Was it real? Was it love? Or was it the ancient world's greatest fairy tale? A miracle made of longing and stone. But don't get too comfortable. Time is restless, and our journey is just beginning. Before dawn breaks, we'll trace the curious path of money itself, how simple trade and trust between strangers transformed into glittering coins, handwritten notes, paper promises, and now invisible code flashing across the globe. From bartering for goats and salt to tapping your phone in a crowded cafe, The story of money is the story of how we learn to believe in each other, in power, in dreams. And if your eyes grow heavy and your mind begins to wander, that's just as it should be. Because history is not a test to be passed, but a gentle river to float along, letting the current pull you through ages and empires, scandals and miracles, beauty and tragedy, always returning you softly to the present. Even if you drift off, the story continues, wrapping you in the comfort of voices long gone, and the knowledge that you are never truly alone, not even in the quietest hour of the night. So, are you ready? Will you let yourself drift? Will you join me as we tiptoe through the hush of midnight, past the guards and the gossips, past the ruins and the riddles, searching for what is real and what is merely believed? The night is young, the candle is lit, and the first secret is just around the corner. Settle in, and let's begin. If you thought the halls of the Vatican were always filled with the soft murmurs of prayer and the solemn wisdom of holy men, tonight's first true tale may surprise you. Picture this. The city of Rome, vibrant and unruly, echoing with the clatter of horse hooves on ancient stones. The year is 955. The papacy, that sacred office believed to bridge earth and heaven, stands at a crossroads. The fate of Christendom balances not on the shoulders of a wise and seasoned shepherd, but in the hands of a boy barely old enough to shave. His name is Octavianus, but history would remember him as John the Themed, the teen pope of sin. Imagine it. A young man, just 18 years old, raised in luxury and power, suddenly thrust into the highest spiritual office in the Western world. Not by divine revelation or acts of devotion, but by the ambition of his father, Alberic II, of Spoleto, a man whose dying wish was to see his own blood ascend to the papal throne. What dreams filled young Octavianus's mind on the night he became pope? Did he feel the crushing weight of history, or simply the thrill of a life without limits? From the moment he was crowned, it was clear that John the Faun saw the papacy not as a sacred calling, but as his personal playground. The Lateran Palace, once echoing with the psalms of monks and the sober debate of cardinals, was transformed almost overnight. The air grew thick with the scent of wine, laughter, and whispered secrets. Roman historians, scandalized and yet unable to look away, accused John of turning the holy residence into nothing less than a brothel. Prostitutes walked the halls where saints once prayed. Sacred relics disappeared, pawned off to fund a never-ending parade of feasts and pleasures. But his excesses were not confined to the flesh alone. In the candlelit chambers, where ancient doctrines were discussed, the young pope played a different game. He wagered not only coins, but trust and loyalty. He was said to toast the old pagan gods as often as he did Christ, gambling with his bishops late into the night, carelessly mocking the faith he was sworn to defend. The papacy had weathered storms of politics before, but never had it spiritual. Hearts seemed so vulnerable, so utterly defenseless against the recklessness of youth. Rome, meanwhile, was restless. The city teetered between admiration and outrage, for John's charm was undeniable. He could be generous, impulsively bestowing gifts and titles on those who pleased him. But beneath that charm lay a storm of ambition and paranoia. Allies became enemies at the flicker of a candle. Friends were betrayed, their trust discarded as easily as yesterday's wine. Most dangerous of all was his relationship with the Holy Roman Emperor Otto I, a partnership forged in convenience, not respect. John, ever eager to assert his independence, secretly negotiated with Otto's rivals, sowing chaos among the powerful families of Italy. The consequences came swiftly. Otto, betrayed and enraged, marched his armies to Rome's gates. The city, accustomed to intrigue, now found itself at the mercy of imperial power. Bishops, summoned to a hastily convened synod, accused the young pope of crimes so shocking they seemed torn from the pages of ancient legend. Simony, murder, incest, even invoking demons. For a moment, it appeared the game was over. John the Faun was deposed. The keys to St. Peter's surrendered. But this was a boy who had never learned to accept defeat. With the help of loyal Roman mobs, those who saw in him not a saint, but a symbol of rebellion, John stormed back into power. His return was no gentle restoration, but a whirlwind of revenge. Bishops who dared to oppose him found themselves hunted, exiled, even executed. Enemies were mutilated, their bodies left as grim reminders of what it meant to challenge a pope who played by no rules but his own. And yet, for all his bravado, John the Thorn could not escape the shadows gathering around him. His reign, so extravagant and violent, ended with a whisper and a gasp. In the spring of 964, the young pope met his fate in the most scandalous of ways. Some whispered that he died after being struck down by a jealous husband, having been caught in bed with another man's wife. Others claimed he suffered a fatal stroke while committing adultery, an ending as ignoble as the life he had led. However it happened, the result was the same. The papacy, so recently radiant with hope and tradition, lay in ruins, stained not only by John's sins, but by the willingness of those around him to look away. His short, tempestuous life left a legacy that would echo through the centuries, a warning perhaps that power granted too soon, without wisdom or humility, can turn even the holiest office into a stage for tragedy. And yet, as we look back from the safety of our own quiet rooms, we might wonder, was John Dorothy merely a villain, or was he the inevitable product of an age when ambition ran unchecked, and even the most sacred institutions were playthings in the hands of the powerful? Could any boy, handed a crown before he'd found himself, have resisted the temptations swirling through those ancient marble halls? Tonight, as sleep drifts ever closer, let the story of John the Fourth linger like the echo of distant bells. Remember the fragile line between innocence and excess, between destiny and disaster. For in the heart of the world's most sacred city, a young man once tried to turn faith into pleasure and power into play. He did not succeed, but he left behind a legend, a warning whispered through the centuries. Even in the house of saints, the shadows of youth and ambition can run deep. As you rest, let the tale of the teen pope of sin remind you that history's greatest dramas are never as far away as they seem. Sometimes, the distance between a marble throne and a soft pillow is only the space of a dream. Just as the dust begins to settle over the stormy legacy of Pope John the Fourth, our lantern of history flickers once more, casting its light on another figure whose tale would leave the very walls of Rome trembling. This time, our story takes us deeper into the tangled web of family ambition, moral decay, and the almost surreal drama that swirled around the Vatican like a restless ghost. Here, power was not a blessing, but a game, a prize to be won, lost, bought, and sold. In this world, the papacy itself could be treated as nothing more than a glittering trinket, passed from hand to hand as easily as a coin. In the early 11th century, the Roman aristocracy ruled the city with an iron grip. Families like the powerful Tusculani moved bishops and kings around the chessboard of Italy, their alliances sealed by blood, bribes, and sometimes betrayal. It was in this feverish atmosphere that Theophylactus of Tusculum, soon to be known as Pope Benedict IX, was thrust onto the stage. And what a stage it was! He was likely no older than 20 when his family placed the papal crown on his head, and Rome held its breath to see what kind of leader this young man would become. If John the Fourth had turned the Lateran Palace into a den of vice, Benedict IX would take things even further. He did not merely dabble in scandal, he was swallowed whole by it. The chronicles of the age, written by monks with trembling hands, accused Benedict of every vice the mind could imagine: rape, adultery, violence, and even the shadowy art of black magic. Wild orgies were said to echo through the marble corridors, the laughter of courtesans mixing with the chants of priests. The sacred was not simply forgotten, it was mocked, traded for pleasure and power. But it was not only the clergy who recoiled. The Roman people, long used to political intrigue, found Benedict's reign so offensive that even they demanded his removal. He was forced out by a popular uprising, only to return, twice more, each time clawing his way back to power with the help of his family's influence and the gold that flowed through their veins. At times, Rome found itself with 3 different popes claiming the throne, each with their own army of supporters, each fanning the flames of confusion and chaos. Yet, the most astonishing act of Benedict's papacy was still to come, an act that would forever stain the memory of the Church. In a move that would seem impossible even in a fever dream, Benedict decided to sell the papal throne. Imagine for a moment the keys to the kingdom of heaven being exchanged for bags of gold, the holiest office in Christendom offered to the highest bidder. The buyer was none other than his godfather, the devout archpriest John Gratian, who would later be known as Pope Gregory VI. The story goes that Gratian accepted not for ambition, but to bring peace to a city torn apart by Benedict's endless excesses. Still, the damage was done. The shockwaves rippled far beyond Rome's crumbling walls. The Church was plunged into a crisis of legitimacy, its moral authority undermined by the actions of a single, wayward pope. But Benedict's greed did not end there. No sooner had he handed over the throne than he began to regret it. Hungry for more, he returned yet again, throwing the Church into utter turmoil. Each rival claimant clinging to the promise of power. For a brief, surreal moment, there were 3 popes in Rome, an emperor's nightmare, a satirist's dream. It was at this point that Henry III, the Holy Roman Emperor, was forced to intervene. He called a great council, a gathering of bishops and nobles who, exhausted by the endless chaos, swept the board clean. All 3 popes were removed. Benedict was excommunicated, not just once, but again and again, depending on which faction held sway at any given moment. His legacy was not one of faith or reform, but of confusion and disgrace. And yet, if you listen carefully, there is more to this story than scandal and shame. In the long, drowsy hours of night, when the world feels distant and soft, it's easy to see Benedict IX as more than a villain. He was a young man, swept up in the ambitions of a powerful family, surrounded by temptations and taught to see the Church not as a place of devotion, but as a stage for personal gain. His actions, unforgivable as they were, reflected the wild, lawless age in which he lived, a world where the difference between sinner and saint was as thin as a thread of incense smoke. But the lesson lingers, gentle and persistent, like the tolling of distant bells. Power that is seized without reverence, that is used for pleasure and profit rather than for service, is always fleeting. The throne that can be bought will always be lost again, and the legacy of greed is never the one we hope to leave behind. So, as you drift ever closer to sleep, let your mind wander through those shadowy Roman streets. Picture the flicker of torches, the nervous whispers in hidden corners, the uneasy truce between ambition and faith. The story of Benedict IX is not just a tale of one man's fall from grace. It is a quiet reminder that history is full of choices, and that sometimes the greatest scandals are born not from evil, but from the simple human hunger for more. Tonight, let that lesson settle over you as gently as a blanket, for in the silent spaces between power and humility, history finds its true voice, a whisper, a warning, and perhaps a promise that even the darkest stories can lead us back toward the light. If you were to walk the moonlit streets of Renaissance, Rome, you might imagine the city as a place of divine inspiration, cathedrals and candles, pious monks shuffling past marble fountains, the solemn beauty of sacred ritual. But listen closely, and beneath the echo of church bells, you might sense something else moving in the shadows. For not all that happened behind the Vatican's grand doors was shaped by devotion. Some stories, hushed for centuries, slither like serpents through the tall grass of history, tales of ambition so ruthless, so dazzling, that they would shock even the most seasoned dreamers. No name casts a longer, darker shadow over that golden age than Borgia. The mere mention sends a shiver of intrigue through even the deepest sleepers. Tonight, we draw the curtains and light our candle in the chamber of Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, a man whose reign defined the very meaning of scandal, whose family name became a byword for corruption, conspiracy, and unquenchable thirst for power. Rodrigo Borgia's rise was not the result of quiet faith or humble service. He was not, as many hoped a pope would be, a shepherd of souls, but rather a master of games. When the College of Cardinals gathered in 1492 to choose the next pontiff, the halls were filled not with prayers, but with whispers, promises made in secret, fortunes exchanged in the shadows, bribes pressed into trembling hands. It was said that Borgia's gold flowed like wine, and that every vote had its price. When the smoke cleared and his name was announced, Rome did not rejoice. Instead, it braced itself for the storm to come, and what a storm it was. Once enthroned, as Pope Alexander VI, Borgia wasted no time in transforming the Vatican into a fortress of family ambition. He openly acknowledged multiple children, most famously Cesare and Lucrezia, placing them at the very heart of papal politics. Cesare, first a cardinal, then a general, moved through Rome like a prince of war, his reputation a tangled knot of legend and fear. Some called him the inspiration for Machiavelli's The Prince, a man who would stop at nothing to seize and keep power. Lucrezia, meanwhile, became a figure cloaked in rumour, described by envious tongues as an enchantress, a poisoner, a pawn, and a queen. In truth, she was both victim and survivor, caught in the spider's web her father and brother spun, used, as a tool in alliances and feuds, a symbol of Borgia's willingness to put family above all else. The Vatican itself seemed to breathe with the tension, its marble floors echoing not with hymns, but with the careful steps of courtiers and spies. Yet for all the political intrigue, it was the parties that shocked even jaded Romans. Imagine the great halls awash in candlelight, velvet drapes drawn tight against the night, tables piled high with delicacies, the air rich with perfume and anticipation. The most infamous of all, the banquet of chestnuts, was whispered about for generations. Dozens of courtesans and prostitutes, gold coins tossed for their games, and high-ranking clergy revelling while the Pope watched from his throne. It was a spectacle as decadent as any emperor's feast, a night where the line between sacred and profane blurred into oblivion. Borgia's ambition extended far beyond family pleasure. He turned church offices into commodities, selling cardinalships and benefices to the highest bidder, turning faith itself into a marketplace. The papacy, once the anchor of Christian unity, became a source of endless wealth for the Borgias and their allies. Yet, in a strange twist of history, Alexander VI was also a gifted administrator. He strengthened the papal states, commissioned grand works of art, and reshaped Rome's skyline, proof that even the most tarnished hands can leave behind beauty that outlasts their sins. But nothing lasts forever, and the wheel of fortune spun swiftly for the Borgia dynasty. In 1503, as plots thickened and enemies drew near, Alexander VI died, some say poisoned by mistake while trying to murder a rival, others claim by his own excess. His end was as dramatic as his life. The body left bloated and unburied for days, unable to fit in his coffin, a grim spectacle that mirrored the excesses of his reign. The family he had so fiercely elevated scattered or fell, their legacy a mosaic of legends, truths, and half-remembered fears. Even in death, the name Borgia lingered in Rome like incense after a storm, cloying, unforgettable, impossible to wash away. Alexander VI became the measure against which all future scandals would be compared. Did he love his children or use them? Did he build or destroy? Was he a monster or simply a man born into an age where ruthlessness was the price of survival? As you let your eyelids grow heavier, consider the paradox of Alexander VI. In the world's most sacred city, beneath the dome of St. Peter's, he ruled not as a shepherd, but as a serpent, cunning, charismatic, and dangerous. Yet the very darkness of his story throws into sharp relief the light that sometimes shone through. Even the most tainted hands can build wonders. Even the most infamous lives become stories, whispered and remembered, shaping the world in their wake. So tonight, if you find yourself dreaming of candlelit halls and velvet shadows, of laughter in forbidden gardens and secrets traded beneath painted ceilings, remember, history is rarely simple, and the truest tales are those that linger long after the last bell has rung. Let the legacy of the Borgias drift with you into sleep, a lesson in ambition, love, and the strange eternal dance between power and ruin. Some nights, as you settle deeper into the gentle dark and the world around you grows soft and silent, the mind finds itself drifting into corners of history that feel almost unreal. You might wonder, how far could the powerful go to protect their legacy or to destroy the memory of those who came before? What strange and unsettling rituals have unfolded behind the locked doors of power, where ambition mixes with fear and old grudges echo long after their owners are gone? Tonight, we light our lantern and walk softly into one of the most unsettling chapters in papal history, a time when the thirst for control reached such feverish heights that the boundary between the living and the dead seemed to dissolve. This is the tale of Pope Stephen VI, the judge of the dead, and Pope Urban VI, a tyrant whose rage split the church in two. Their stories remind us that even in places built for prayer, shadows can gather, and the past is never quite finished with the present. First, imagine Rome at the end of the 9th century. The city, once the beating heart of a mighty empire, is now a patchwork of rival families, crumbling palaces, and ambitions as old as its stones. In the Lateran Palace, Pope Stephen VI paces restlessly, tormented by the ghosts of the papacy, especially one, his predecessor, Pope Formosus. The rivalry between living and dead was about to reach grotesque new heights. One night in 897, the unimaginable unfolded. Stephen, driven by the urging of powerful allies, or perhaps by his own gnawing need for vengeance, ordered the exhumation of Formosus's corpse. By then, the former pope had lain in his grave for nearly a year, his body withered and decayed. Still, he was dressed in the sacred vestments, propped up on a throne in the Lateran Basilica, and put on trial. Yes, a corpse on trial. This was the infamous Cadaver Synod, one of the strangest and most chilling spectacles ever staged beneath the dome of St. Peter's. By flickering candlelight, bishops gathered to accuse the dead man of crimes against the church. Stephen screamed at the withered remains, declaring Formosus's every act invalid. His appointments, his sacraments, even his papacy itself. The grotesque farce ended with Formosus's corpse stripped of its sacred robes. 3 fingers, the ones used for blessing, hacked off and discarded, and the body dragged through the streets before being hurled into the muddy waters of the Tiber. Rome was left breathless, horrified by the sight of priests attacking their own dead, and the church was plunged into chaos. Whispers of curses haunted the night, and the people soon rose up. Stephen, having let hatred consume him, was imprisoned and strangled by his own guards, a swift, grim justice for the man who tried to put the dead on trial. Yet, as the years passed, the wounds left by the Cadaver Synod would not heal easily. The church, so shaken by the madness of vengeance, sought desperately to restore its dignity. The acts of Stephen VI were declared null, and Formosus was reburied with honor. But the memory of that night lingered, a reminder that unchecked ambition could make a mockery of even the holiest institutions. Fast forward nearly 5 centuries, and Rome faces a new storm. The church, now richer and more powerful than ever, is again threatened, not from the grave, but from within. Into this tense world steps Pope Urban VI, a man whose temperament would prove as destructive as any ancient feud. Urban was elected in 1378 during a time of great expectation and anxiety. The papacy had just returned from years in exile at Avignon, and Rome longed for stability, for a shepherd to heal old wounds. But what they received was a man of unyielding will, whose anger could shake the marble columns themselves. Urban's rage was legendary. He hurled insults at his own cardinals, accused them of plotting against him, and was known to beat his officials with his own fists. Instead of calming the turmoil, he fanned the flames. The cardinals, terrified for their lives, fled Rome and declared his election invalid. In his place, they named a rival pope, Clement VII, who quickly set up court in Avignon. Suddenly, the world found itself with two popes, each claiming to be the true voice of Christ on earth, each excommunicating the other. This split, known as the Great Schism, would last for nearly 40 years. Across Europe, kings and princes were forced to choose sides. Alliances shifted, armies marched, and the faithful were left confused and divided. The sight of rival popes, hurling curses across the Alps, became a grotesque theatre, a holy war fought not with swords, but with words and decrees. Urban Sixtux, meanwhile, grew ever more isolated, surrounded by suspicion and the wreckage of trust. He died in 1389, unloved and unmourned, his tomb a lonely monument to ambition gone awry. Tonight, as your mind wanders through the ruins of old Rome, let these stories settle around you like a shroud. Imagine the candlelight glinting off marble, the uneasy silence after the crowds have gone, the echo of prayers and curses tangled together in the air. The tales of Stephen VI and Urban VI are not just stories of power lost and won, but of the terrible cost of obsession and the dangers of letting anger, whether aimed at the dead or the living, rule the heart. In the end, history reminds us that even those in the loftiest of positions are still only human, shaped by fear, pride, and longing. The papal throne may be high, but its shadow can be very long indeed. Rest now, and let the memories of the cadaver synod and the tyrant in. White slip gently into the mist. Tomorrow, new secrets await, and the river of time will carry us onward, always forward, always deeper into the fascinating, bewildering story of us all. If you drift a little deeper into the river of dreams, you'll find that the world of the papacy, so often pictured as solemn and sacred, has sometimes sparkled with gold, laughter, and even scandalous desire. Power, after all, does not always arrive robed in humility. Sometimes it struts into the sanctuary dressed in silks, throwing feasts as grand as any emperor, or bending the sacred to the will of a single family. Tonight, let us meet two popes whose reigns were marked by glittering excess and chilling intrigue. Leo VI, the prince who nearly bankrupted the soul of Christendom, and Sergius III, the father of the pornocracy, an era when Rome itself became a pawn in a shadowy game of family ambition. Let's begin in the heart of the Renaissance, where the air is sweet with music and the city glows with the colour of new art. Born into the illustrious Medici family of Florence, Giovanni de' Medici was destined for greatness. From childhood, he was groomed for power, taught to appreciate beauty, to command respect, and, above all, to maintain the family's grip on both gold and glory. When he became Pope Leo VI in 1513, the world held its breath. Would this Medici prince be a reformer, a shepherd, a guardian of faith? Or would he become something else entirely? The answer came swiftly. Leo VI transformed the Vatican into a dazzling palace of culture. Under his patronage, the genius of Raphael and Michelangelo flourished. Artworks blossomed, music soared, and the papal court rivaled any royal household in Europe. Banquets glittered with rare wines and delicacies. Poets and artists mingled, with princes and cardinals. The Pope's laughter echoed down marbled corridors, and the scent of luxury hung in the air. But beneath the splendour lay a troubling truth. Leo VI's generosity had a price, a cost measured not just in gold, but in the very fabric of faith. To pay for his endless celebrations and grand projects, the Pope turned to the sale of indulgences, official documents that promised forgiveness of sins, available for a fee. As soon as the coin in the coffer rings, one preacher sang, a soul from purgatory springs. This policy, meant to fill the Vatican's coffers, sparked outrage across Europe. It was, in the words of a German monk named Martin Luther, a crisis of salvation, the moment when faith itself was put up for sale. The consequences would be seismic. Luther's protest soon erupted into the Reformation, a movement that would split Christianity in two, change the course of history, and shatter the Medici dream. Leo X, for all his taste and brilliance, died in debt, the church reeling from the wounds his policies had inflicted. In his quest for beauty and glory, he had bankrupted not just the Vatican treasury, but the soul of an age. And yet, the story does not end there. Let us slip backward now, through winding alleys and candlelit rooms, to the early 10th century, a time when Rome belonged not to saints, but to families who wielded power like a blade. Here, we meet Pope Sergius III, a Sinab man whose reign was as wild and lawless as any legend. He claimed the papal throne after a storm of violence, casting aside rivals and painting Rome with the colours of ambition and betrayal. Sergius III's rule marked the beginning of what later historians would call the pornocracy, or rule of the harlots. The Vatican, instead of being the moral compass of the Christian world, became the centre of intrigue and debauchery. Sergius himself was notorious for his affair with Marozia, the formidable noblewoman who, through wit and will, ruled Rome from behind closed doors. Their relationship produced a son who would one day become Pope John V, tying the fate of the papacy even more tightly to Rome's most powerful family. During the pornocracy, Rome's streets echoed with laughter and secrets. Titles and church, offices were traded like coins. Loyalty was bought and sold, and the dreams of reformers faded into a haze of midnight feasts and whispered plots. Sergius's papacy was a stage for ambition, his and Marozia's, a testament to how easily holy institutions could be bent to mortal desires. Yet, even here, amid scandal and sin, history offers a gentle reminder. The church survived. The world moved on. In the soft glow of candlelight, we see not just the ruins of excess, but the stubborn resilience of faith, tarnished perhaps, but never truly extinguished. Tonight, as you let these stories swirl around you, listen for the lessons beneath the scandal. Leo X reminds us that the pursuit of beauty without conscience can empty even the richest halls. Sergius III whispers that unchecked ambition can twist the highest office into a game of shadows. But in both stories, there is a deeper thread. The endless human longing for meaning, for legacy, for something that will outlast even the wildest dreams. So close your eyes and drift gently towards sleep. Let the laughter of Medici banquets and the whispers of Roman intrigue fade into silence. Remember that every age has its shadows and every story its dawn. In the end, history is not merely a tale of saints or sinners, but of people, flawed, longing, and wonderfully, hopelessly human. As you relax a little deeper, letting the world slip further away, we come to two names forever etched in the stone of history. Two popes whose ambition burned so brightly that it cast both light and shadow across the whole of Christendom. With them, the story of the papacy reaches its most exalted heights and its most dangerous extremes. Tonight, the gentle river of time carries us to the era of Pope Boniface VIII and Pope Innocent III, men who sought not only to guide souls, but to rule kings, direct empires, and decide the very fate of the world. Let us begin in the dazzling, tumultuous age of Boniface VIII, a man whose very presence seemed to challenge the old order. Born Benedetto Caetani, Boniface rose through the ranks with keen intelligence, unshakable confidence, and a vision that bordered on the divine. To him, the papal crown was not merely a symbol of spiritual authority, but a scepter of earthly dominion. He declared, with a certainty that echoed like thunder, "I am Caesar, I am emperor." Boniface believed himself to stand above all princes, the single most powerful man on earth, God's representative, untouchable and supreme. With unyielding conviction, Boniface VIII pressed kings and princes to kneel before the church. He issued grand decrees, like the famous Unum Sanctum, that proclaimed the absolute necessity of obedience to the Pope for salvation. His power seemed limitless, his confidence unshakable. Yet, ambition has its price. Boniface soon found himself locked in a ferocious struggle with Philip IV of France, a king as proud and ruthless as the Pope himself. The battle was not waged with armies, but with documents, accusations, and excommunications. The air in Rome crackled with tension. Then, in a move that shocked all Europe, Philip's men stormed the papal palace in Anagni, capturing Boniface and subjecting him to humiliation. The old pope was beaten, insulted, and left broken. He died soon after, his last days clouded by anger and grief, his vision of a papal empire shattered. In Dante's Divine Comedy, Boniface is damned, depicted as one who abused the sacred trust of his office. A stark reminder that the path from divine ambition to ruin can be heartbreakingly short. Yet, as the candle flickers, another figure steps. From the shadows, Pope Innocent III, a name that reverberates through history as both a force of renewal and a harbinger of fire. Elected at just 37, Innocent III was brilliant, disciplined, and fiercely determined. He dreamed not just of leading the faithful, but of remaking the entire Christian world, according to the vision of the papacy. With a pen as sharp as any sword, Innocent asserted papal authority over kings and emperors, crowning and dethroning rulers at will. He summoned the Fourth Lateran Council, ushering in reforms that touched every corner of the Church, shaping theology and law for centuries to come. His charisma and intellect made him a beacon for the age, but Innocent III's legacy is also written in blood. He launched the Albigensian Crusade, sending armies into southern France not against pagans or foreign invaders, but against fellow Christians deemed heretics. Towns were put to the torch, thousands perished, and the air was thick with the smoke of burning dreams. Innocent preached the Fifth Crusade, urging princes to take the cross and reclaim the Holy Land. His vision was total: faith and force, unity and conquest, all intertwined beneath the banner of Rome. Can you feel the contradiction? One man with the power to uplift or destroy, to heal or to wound. Both Boniface and Innocent remind us of history's uneasy dance. The closer one comes to absolute power, the more fragile it becomes. Ambition can create miracles or unleash tragedies. And sometimes, the men who shape the destiny of millions are themselves haunted by doubts, shadows, and fears that no crown can banish. So let your mind drift. Picture the soaring cathedrals, the clashing armies, the whispered prayers of peasants and kings. Let the names of Boniface and Innocent echo like distant bells. Their reigns remind us that even at history's highest peaks, the path is perilous, and the burden of power can be both a blessing and a curse. As you relax further, the river of time carries us beyond their thrones and wars, leaving only lessons and echoes behind. Tomorrow, when you wake, you'll know that history's most dramatic stories are woven not just of triumph and glory, but of struggle, heartbreak, and the restless longing of every soul that ever dreamed of greatness. Sleep now with the shadows and the candles, knowing that you have wandered with popes and kings, through halls of marble and fields of fire, and that, for tonight, all is quiet once more. Let your thoughts drift farther east now, as the lanterns of Rome fade and the gentle hush of the night welcomes a different world. A world where legends bloom beneath the desert stars, and a single city's name echoes through the centuries. Babylon. Imagine, if you can, a dawn breaking across the ancient plains of Mesopotamia. The sky glows soft pink, the air heavy with promise. Somewhere beyond the winding river Euphrates, towers rise like dreams from the earth itself. Babylon, soaked in golden sunlight, veiled in heat and mystery, its name whispered in 100 tongues by travelers who have come to see its marvels and its magic. Babylon was never just a city, It was a symbol, a place so grand that even the stories about it seemed to shimmer like a mirage. To the weary and the curious, to poets and kings, it offered something more than stone and brick. It was a promise that the impossible could, for a little while, become real. Can you see it? The walls, so thick that chariots could race along the top, stretching farther than the eye could follow, gleaming in the morning light. The Ishtar Gate, glazed with lapis lazuli, adorned with golden lions, bulls, and dragons that seem to dance as the sunlight glances across their painted backs. Children pause to stare at the dazzling blue as merchants from across the world pass beneath the arch, their carts loaded with spices, perfumes, and dreams. In the heart of the city, the ziggurat rises, layer upon layer of mud brick and hope, its summit said to reach the heavens. Was this, perhaps, the Tower of Babel itself, the monument to human ambition, where languages splintered and the gods looked down, amused or angered by the daring of mortals? Or was it simply another sign that Babylon believed in reaching higher, always higher, no matter the cost? Walk a little farther, and the world grows softer. Here, gardens spill over balconies and terraces, green against the desert's endless tan. The sound of water murmurs from hidden channels, cool and sweet. Some say these were the famous hanging gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, a floating paradise created for love, for longing, for the soothing of homesick hearts. Was it real? Did it truly exist? Or is it merely the most beautiful of all ancient lies? Even if you close your eyes, the city comes alive with 1,000 voices. Priests chant in the shadowy temples, their prayers curling like incense toward unseen gods. Artisans shape clay into vessels for wine and honey. Scribes press delicate reeds into wet tablets, recording laws and poems, lists of stars and debts, love letters and warnings. In the markets, bakers shout the price of bread while jewelers haggle over gleaming gems. Soldiers in bronze helmets march through dusty streets, their footsteps measured and proud. Babylon was the heart of an empire, the prize of conquerors and dreamers alike. It changed hands again and again, ruled by Hammurabi, the lawgiver, by Nebuchadnezzar II, who rebuilt its glory, by Persian kings, Greek generals, and Roman emissaries. Each left a mark, adding new stones and new stories to the city's tapestry. Some came to worship, others to rule, all to marvel. Yet, as the sun climbs higher and the day grows hot, the lines between reality and legend begin to blur. Ancient tablets tell of banquets and sacrifices, of feasts that lasted through the night, of gardens watered by ingenious machines. Stories swirl about Nebuchadnezzar's love for Amytis, who longed for the green hills of her homeland. To ease her sorrow, he is said to have commanded gardens to rise from the desert, defying nature itself. Were these stories true? Or were they dreams spun by travelers, dazzled by the city's grandeur, unable to tell where truth ended and wonder began? In Babylon, time itself seemed to soften. Day slipped into night, and reality mingled with myth. Alexander the Great died here, dreaming of further conquest, and his body was lost to the sands. Prophets cursed the city, predicting its doom. Poets wept for its beauty, its sin, its silence when the crowds had gone. So, as you let your mind wander through this city of wonders, feel the cool stones beneath your feet, the perfume of blooming flowers, the distant hum of life, both ordinary and extraordinary. Babylon was a place where humanity dared to reach beyond its grasp, where longing was answered with creation, where stories grew as quickly as gardens after the spring flood. Now, as night deepens, remember that Babylon was not only a city, but a question, a riddle for the ages. What is real and what is imagined? What wonders do we build, not just from bricks, but from the dreams and desires that refuse to fade? let that question lull you further into rest. For tonight, in the realm between sleep and waking, Babylon still stands, its towers glimmering. In moonlight, its gates wide open, its mysteries waiting patiently for you to dream them once more. Tonight, as the city of Babylon settles in your mind's eye, let us wander deeper, beyond the walls, beyond the towers, to a place where history and fantasy seem to walk hand in hand. The story we seek now is not written in stone, but whispered in the breeze and painted in the memory of poets. It is the tale of the hanging gardens of Babylon, a wonder so enchanting that even now its mystery hangs in the air like a perfumed mist. Close your eyes and imagine. The desert heat softens under the shade of towering terraces, where cool water flows and greenery spills in every direction. Vines cascade down stepped balconies, lush and wild. Roses, lilies, palms, and fruit trees bloom in layers above the city's dust. At dawn, birds sing among the branches, their calls echoing over, a landscape so beautiful that even the most travelled soul might question if it is real. But what were these hanging gardens truly? Did they exist in flesh and leaf, or only in the hearts of those who needed them most? The story, as it comes to us, begins with longing. A queen far from home, her heart aching for the cool green hills of her distant land. Amytis, wife of King Nebuchadnezzar II, was said to have wept for the mountains and forests of Media. To ease her sorrow, her husband resolved to conjure paradise in the desert. With the force of a king and the devotion of a lover, he commanded his architects to raise a garden in the air, tier upon tier, so that Amytis might stand among the flowers and forget her loneliness. Historians, poets, and travellers marvelled at the descriptions left behind. Ancient writers like Strabo and Philo imagined gardens lifted high above the earth, watered by unseen streams, held aloft by columns and arches, a dream of Eden recreated on sun-baked bricks. They called it one of the 7 wonders of the world, a place where nature and ingenuity united in perfect harmony. Yet the deeper we look, the blurrier the truth becomes. The Babylonian tablets, so careful in their records, make no mention of such a garden. Archaeologists have sifted through layers of earth, searching for clues, fragments of terracotta pipes, hints of ancient irrigation systems, ghostly outlines of terraces. Still, no evidence appears to settle the question. Was the garden real? Or was it a story told and retold, growing taller and more wonderful with every retelling, like the vines in its imagined shade? But even legends have roots. The idea of the hanging gardens may be less a lie than a memory, a reflection of Babylon's mastery of water, of engineering that astonished the ancient world. The Euphrates ran thick and wild, but the Babylonians bent it to their will. With ingenious canals, aqueducts, and a system of screw-like pumps, they brought water to their crops, their fountains, and, perhaps, their fabled gardens. Can you picture it? Slaves and labourers turning great wheels, drawing water up, up, up to the highest terrace, where it spilled over into channels lined with bitumen and brick, trickling gently through the roots of fruit trees and lilies. The hanging gardens, real or imagined, became a symbol of possibility. They whispered that with love and ingenuity, even the harshest desert could be made to bloom. They suggested that no longing was too great, no sorrow too deep for human hands to try and heal. Perhaps this is why the legend has lasted so long, drifting from Babylon to Greece, from parchment to poetry, from memory into myth. And yet, there is another theory, a gentle twist in the tale. Some scholars now believe the gardens were not in Babylon at all, but far to the north in the Assyrian city of Nineveh. There, King Sennacherib boasted of gardens watered by mysterious machines, with aqueducts and terraces that challenged the sky. Ancient records found in the ruins describe a marvel so like the hanging gardens that it is easy to imagine a traveller, dazzled by Nineveh's beauty, carrying the story south to Babylon, where it grew into legend. Does it matter, in the end, where the gardens once stood? Or is there true power in the longing they represent? The dream that every heart carries, to transform what is barren into something beautiful. As you drift, let your mind wander among the leaves and blossoms, the cool shade and running water, the laughter of a queen, and the quiet pride of a king who tried, with all his power, to make her feel at home. The hanging gardens remain a mystery, and perhaps that is why we love them still. Their story is one of hope, of wonder, of what we build when we are moved by love. Whether they ever truly existed, their spirit endures, reminding us that beauty, like history itself, is often found where fact and fantasy entwine. So tonight, let your imagination climb those ancient terraces. Let the sound of hidden water lull you further towards sleep. And remember, some wonders need not be seen to be real. In the quiet heart of the night, the hanging gardens are yours to wander, green, eternal, and forever blooming in the garden of dreams. Even as you wander among the shadowy terraces of the hanging gardens in your imagination, a new curiosity stirs, the desire to separate dream from reality, to know if the paradise sung by poets and chronicled by ancient travelers truly ever graced the earth. This is a mystery that has called to scholars, adventurers, and romantics for centuries. Were the hanging gardens of Babylon ever real? And if so, where did they bloom? Let us drift together into the world of discovery, where spades bite softly, into ancient soil and quiet voices echo through the long, echoing chambers of time. For more than 100 years, archaeologists have scoured the land where Babylon once stood, chasing a vision that slips away like morning mist. Their journey has not only been a quest for ruins, but a search for answers, sometimes hopeful, sometimes humbling, always a testament to the longing that legends awaken. The ruins of Babylon lie beside the slow, muddy course of the Euphrates, their great bricks scattered by the centuries, their mighty walls worn low by war, weather, and the slow reclamation of nature. Modern explorers have uncovered the foundations of palaces, temples, and processional avenues. They have found the mighty Ishtar Gate, glorious even in its shattered remains, and the outlines of the ziggurat that may once have inspired tales of Babel. Yet for all their skill, none have found definitive evidence of the Hanging Gardens. This absence troubles some, yet it fascinates others. The tablets and clay records left by the Babylonians, so meticulous about other matters, say nothing of a garden floating above the city. No inscription describes a king's heroic effort to build paradise for a homesick queen. No blueprint, no relic, no ruined terrace reveals itself among the ruins. How, then, did such a vivid legend take root? And why has it endured? Part of the answer lies in the world of ancient writers. The descriptions we treasure of lush terraces, soaring columns, and trickling waterfalls come mostly from later Greek and Roman visitors. Strabo, Diodorus Siculus, and Philo of Byzantium painted word pictures of marvels they never saw firsthand, relying on rumour and second-hand tales, mixing wonder with a touch of envy for the East's ancient glory. Their Babylon was a place of miracles, its gardens an emblem of what human will could achieve. Still, the silence of Babylon's own records invites suspicion. Was the garden a tale borrowed from elsewhere, a traveller's confusion, a dream that migrated north along the Tigris? In recent decades, some archaeologists and scholars have proposed a remarkable theory. Perhaps the Hanging Gardens were never in Babylon at all, but in the mighty city of Nineveh, capital of the Assyrian Empire. This idea took root thanks to the work of researchers like Dr. Stephanie Daly, who found in the clay archives of Assyria tantalizing references to massive terraced gardens and astonishing feats of irrigation. The Assyrian king Sennacherib described a palace without rival, surrounded by gardens watered by an ingenious system of canals and what may have been an early screw pump centuries before Archimedes. His city was called New Babylon by the Greeks, and its marvels could easily have been mistaken or deliberately rebranded in the shifting memory of history. Excavations at Nineveh have revealed the outlines of just such a garden, elevated, terraces, advanced aqueducts, channels carved through the rock for miles to bring water to a thirsty city. The engineers of Sennacherib's court bent rivers to their will, and poets sang of his palace without equal. Could the stories of Babylon's gardens, told and retold by merchants, soldiers, and wandering poets, have merged with the splendors of Assyria, creating a legend bigger than any one city? It's a question that may never be answered with certainty. The truth of the Hanging Gardens is hidden in the shifting sands of time, somewhere between lost stones and living memory. Archaeology gives us hints. A fragment of a pipe here, the remains of a vaulted room there, but no single discovery can sweep away centuries of doubt. And yet, perhaps that is the real magic. The Hanging Gardens endure not only because of what they were, but because of what they promise. That beauty and ingenuity, love and longing can create wonders whose influence far outlasts their stones. Whether in Babylon or Nineveh, or only in the endless fertile soil of human imagination, the gardens remain, an invitation to hope, to dream, and to ask the questions that keep history alive. So, as you rest, let your mind slip gently between worlds, between the sound of a shovel in soft earth and the laughter of a queen surrounded by impossible green. For sometimes, the greatest mysteries are not solved, but cherished, not unearthed, but quietly, eternally dreamed. As the night draws on and you drift deeper into the gentle current of history, let us pause in the lingering shade of the Hanging Gardens, whether they stood in Babylon, Nineveh, or only in dreams, and consider the meaning their legend holds for us even now. Some wonders last not in stone or root, but in the stories and symbols they become, echoing through centuries. Like a melody you cannot quite forget. Why do we love the tale of the Hanging Gardens so much? Perhaps it is because, at its heart, the story is not just about ancient engineering or royal grandeur. It is a parable of longing, of love's power to inspire impossible beauty, and of humanity's eternal urge to make the world bloom, even in the harshest desert. In Amytas' sorrow and Nebuchadnezzar's devotion, we glimpse the hope that all loneliness can be soothed, that all barren places can be transformed, even if only for a moment. The Hanging Gardens became a symbol for more than the city that claimed them. They stand as a vision of paradise built by human hands, a place where nature is lifted up and cherished, where the boundaries between art and earth, invention and instinct, are lovingly blurred. The story suggests that it is within our grasp to create wonder, even when the world seems unforgiving. For every listener lulled by this legend, the message is clear. If love and imagination are strong enough, even deserts can be made to bloom. But the gardens are more than a love story. They also carry the weight of ambition and the price of power. Nebuchadnezzar, like so many ancient kings, built his wonders as a testament to his reign, a statement to the world that his dreams were bigger than the horizon. The Hanging Gardens, real or not, remind us of the fleeting nature of such glory. Empires rise and fall, stones crumble, but the longing to create something that will outlast our brief years is universal. That longing lives on in every artist, builder, and dreamer who sees beauty where others see only dust. Philosophers through the ages have pondered the meaning of paradise. Some search for it in distant lands, others in gardens of the mind or heart. The Hanging Gardens become a metaphor for the inner oasis each of us seeks, a space where worries melt away, where the soul is soothed by the music of water and the perfume of unseen blossoms. Can you feel it now? The way a story, even more than a monument, can become a place of refuge. How myth can be as real as memory, comforting as a lullaby. There is also a lesson here about mystery itself. The fact that the Hanging Gardens may never have existed in the way we imagine does not diminish their power. Instead, their uncertainty makes them even more precious, a shared dream, kept alive not by proof, but by hope. In a world obsessed with certainty, the legend of the gardens gently reminds us that some things are worth believing in simply because they are beautiful. The legacy of the hanging gardens is seen in every vision of paradise that came after. Medieval artists painted walled Edens, Renaissance architects dreamed of tiered courtyards, and even in modern cities, rooftop gardens bring green to the grey, answering an ancient call. The spirit of the gardens endures whenever we choose to lift nature up, to create sanctuary in the sky, or to bring joy to a place where sorrow once lived. So tonight, as you close your eyes and breathe in the peace that only comes with sleep, let the legend of the hanging gardens settle softly around you. Imagine the cool water trickling through stone channels, the soft rustle of leaves above, the distant laughter of a queen comforted at last. Remember that history's greatest treasures are sometimes found not in the ground, but in the heart, in the stories we share, the beauty we seek, and the hope that, even in the darkest desert, something miraculous can still take root. Drift gently now, and let the gardens bloom once more in your dreams, green, boundless, and forever waiting, just beyond the edge of waking. Let your mind drift away from the grandeur of ancient gardens, and wander now into the earliest villages where history is quieter, but no less wondrous. Imagine the first rays of dawn glinting off dew-covered fields. In this gentle light, people gather not to worship or marvel, but to do something so simple, so necessary, that it binds all of human life together. They trade. Picture a day thousands of years ago, when our ancestors stood on grassy riverbanks, arms full of what they'd made or gathered. Grain, salt, cattle, woven cloth, a string of shiny shells. Voices mingle as neighbors approach one another with questions, offers, and hopes. I have wheat, you have honey. Let us share. This, the ancient dance of barter, was the beginning of everything we now know as economy. Barter is at once elegant and clumsy, a beautiful solution for a simple world, but soon its limits appear. What if your neighbor wants salt, but you only have grain? What if what you offer is not what someone else desires? In the cool dawn, these small problems grow, until whole communities must find new ways to measure fairness, to store value, to make sure that no one goes wanting and nothing precious is wasted. Enter the first proto-currencies, objects chosen not just for their use, but for their meaning. A cow, heavy with milk, becomes not only food, but a measure of wealth. A bolt of rare cloth, a polished bead, a nugget of shining metal. These become more than things. They become symbols, tokens in the great game of trust and exchange. In some places, shells known as cowries pass from hand to hand, prized for their beauty and rarity. In other lands, heavy iron tools, blocks of salt, or bundles of tobacco serve as early money. The variety is endless, as inventive as the people who dreamed it. Each item chosen reflects what the community values: strength, sustenance, beauty, the promise of safety. Can you imagine the quiet pride in a trader's eyes as she strings new shells onto a necklace, her wealth growing one shimmering bead at a time? Or the warmth of a handshake by firelight as a deal is struck and both parties go home content? Even before writing, before kings and cities, this trust is the thread that weaves society together. Over time, as villages grow into towns and towns into cities, the web of exchange becomes ever more tangled. Distance increases, strangers meet, and words alone are not enough to guarantee a bargain. Here, in this complexity, the seeds of true money are sown, not merely as a thing to be used, but as a promise kept, a memory honored, a value shared across generations. Let us drift, for a moment, to the vast deserts of Africa, where slabs of salt, precious and difficult to transport, become a storehouse of worth, traded for gold, grain, and even people. Or to the islands of the Pacific, where enormous stone discs are moved from village to village in ceremonies that speak not just of wealth, but of belonging and history. In the Americas, the soft brown beans of cacao become currency in ancient Mesoamerica, exchanged in bustling markets where the air is thick with the scent of chocolate and promise. Even the humblest objects, when agreed upon, take on new power. They are believed in, trusted, and cherished. there is something magical here. Something that lingers even in our modern cashless world. Barter and proto-currency are more than means to an end. They are stories, shared dreams, proof that what we value is not only what we can hold, but what we can imagine together. Before coins, before banks, before the flicker of numbers on a screen, there was this: two people standing face to face, holding out what they have, reaching for what they need, and finding, if only for a moment, balance. Barter is a song as old as humanity, and its echoes can still be heard wherever trust is born, and gifts are exchanged with open hands. So as you close your eyes tonight, picture those first markets, those quiet riverbanks, those fireside bargains. Remember that every dollar, every coin, every digital transaction that fills our lives is rooted in this ancient dance, a dance of hope, fairness, and the belief that together we can make the world richer than any one of us could ever dream. Alone, drift gently now, with the wisdom of barter and the shimmering promise of the world's first money. The story continues, ever onward, ever deeper, through the centuries of trust and trade. Let your imagination drift from barter and beads to the ringing sound of metal, a new dawn in the history of value. The world has grown larger, its connections stretched across deserts and seas. Trust, once sealed with a handshake or a cowrie shell, now travels farther than ever before. And so, out of the tangled web of ancient markets, something remarkable appears. The first coins. It is nearly 3,000 years ago, and in the land of Lydia, a kingdom where western Turkey now lies, the ground shivers with excitement. Gold and silver run in streaks through the earth, shining in the sunlight. Here, a clever idea takes shape. Instead of trading heavy sacks of grain or strings of shells, people begin to melt metal into small, stamped discs, each marked with the king's emblem. These are not just tokens, but promises. A coin's weight and mark guarantee its worth, making trade easier, swifter, and more secure. Suddenly, a farmer can sell his grain and carry home the value in the palm of his hand. A merchant can travel from city to city, knowing that his payment will be accepted, that trust is now bound in bronze and gold. Coins sweep quickly across the ancient world, carried by traders, soldiers, and adventurers. In Greece, coins become both currency and art. Embossed with the wise owl of Athens, the noble lion of Corinth, or the stern profile of Alexander the Great. Each city-state creates its own coins, beautiful as miniature sculptures, a reflection of pride and identity. Can you picture it? A bustling Athenian marketplace, alive with the clink of coins changing hands, vendors shouting the day's prices, children darting between stalls. Each coin tells a story, a celebration of victory, a mark of royal favor, a symbol of unity or independence. Money is no longer a mere object. It is propaganda, a message sent from ruler to subject, from city to the world. As coins spread, their influence ripples outward. In Persia, the mighty kings of the Achaemenid Empire mint their own gold darics and silver segloi, using them to pay vast armies and build palaces that dazzle the eye. In Rome, coins become a tool of empire, stamped with the faces of emperors, gods, and heroes. They travel the length of roads stretching from Britain to Egypt, binding distant provinces to the heart of Rome. Every time a coin is exchanged, tiny promise is renewed. The empire endures, its reach unbroken. But the story does not end with kings and generals. Coins bring change to the daily lives of ordinary people. Markets grow larger, trade routes stretch farther, new cities bloom along the crossroads of commerce. Farmers, artisans, sailors, and scholars all become part of an ever-widening web of exchange. In distant India, coins made of silver and copper pass from hand to hand, marked with the symbols of ancient dynasties. In China, round coins with square holes allow for easy stringing and counting, a practical magic that will shape commerce for millennia. Even in places where coins do not take root, their legend spreads, carried by rumor and desire. There is a strange power in a small piece of metal. It holds a story, a hope, a legacy. To hold a coin is to touch the dreams of a king, the prayers of a merchant, the history of a people. In every scratch and gleam, in every faded emblem, lies the echo of 1,000 hands, a silent witness to the rise and fall of civilizations. Coins also make trade global. Silk, spices, olive oil, and wine now flow in vast networks, carried by caravan and ship, linked by the trust these little discs inspire. Picture a Phoenician galley gliding across the sunlit Mediterranean, its cargo hold filled with glass, cedar, and purple dye. Its sailors counting their silver coins beneath the flapping sails. Or an Egyptian priest accepting payment for a ritual, eyes shining as gold passes from palm to palm, carrying with it a whisper of distant lands. Yet, even as coins bring people together, they also become tools of ambition, war, and control. Rulers debase their coinage, mixing base metals with precious ones, trying to stretch their power a little further. Wars are waged for gold mines and mints. New empires rise, built on silver and bronze, even as old ones crumble when trust in their currency fails. So tonight, as you drift deeper, let the music of ancient coins lull you, a melody of trade, trust, ambition, and hope. Remember that every dollar, every card, every digital token you use today is a faint echo of these first bright dreams. The journey of money is the journey of civilization itself, forever moving, forever changing, forever, searching for new hands to carry its promise into the dawn. Sleep softly now, cradled by the gleam of coins and the endless song of trade that links every age and every dreamer who ever dared to believe in a brighter, more connected world. Now, as the jingle of coins softens and the night deepens, let us journey further along the winding path of money. Imagine for a moment the ancient markets settling into dusk. Merchants pack away silver and bronze, but the world grows ever wider, and with it, the dreams and needs of humanity. Carrying sacks of heavy coins along the Silk Road, across stormy seas or crowded cities, becomes burdensome. So, out of necessity and genius, a new idea emerges, light as a feather, powerful as a king's promise. Paper money. Travel with me to the misty banks of the Yangtze River, more than 1,000 years ago. In the teeming markets of China's Song dynasty, traders bustle, their hands busy with bolts of silk, bales of tea, spices and precious stones. But instead of exchanging heavy strings of copper coins, many now use slips of paper, printed with elegant calligraphy and the seal of the emperor. These jiaozi or promissory notes are the world's first true paper currency. A revolution not just in trade, but in the very notion of value itself. Can you feel the marvel, the nervous excitement? No longer must a merchant risk bandits. For a fortune in metal, he can travel with nothing more than a piece of paper, backed by the trust and authority of the mighty state. In a flash, trade becomes swifter, lighter, and more daring. Soon, the idea spreads. North to Mongolia, west to Persia, and after centuries across the seas to medieval Europe. But for paper money to work, it must be believed. It is not precious in itself. It is a promise, a silent agreement that what cannot be seen is still real, that faith in an institution can be as strong as gold. This is the birth of a new kind of magic. Money as trust. As civilizations grow, another marvel arises, the bank. In Renaissance Italy, where streets are alive with the shouts of traders and the swirl of commerce, families like the Medicis transform small lending houses into mighty financial empires. Banks become the keepers of fortune, the masters of risk. Merchants deposit their wealth for safekeeping, receive notes in return, and travel to distant cities, secure in the knowledge that their money will await them, transformed from coin to promise, from weight to word. In these bustling cities, trust is everything. The bank's reputation, built over generations, is worth more than any vault of gold. At grand tables, ledgers are filled with careful script. Letters of credit leap across continents, allowing commerce to bloom in 1,000 distant ports. Behind every transaction is a quiet, invisible thread, a shared belief that the world will keep its word, that a slip of parchment, a number in a ledger, can open doors and shape destinies. Soon, governments themselves embrace the power of paper. Kings and queens print their own notes, stamped with royal crests and elaborate designs. In the coffee houses of London, brokers gather to trade stocks and bonds, laying the foundations for the mighty financial markets of today. Money has become not just an object, but an idea, a faith in the future, a belief in stability, a contract between strangers who may never meet. But the journey is not without peril. For every age of prosperity, there are moments of panic, when rumors shake the foundations of trust, when paper becomes worthless, when fortunes vanish like dew in the sun. Bank runs, crashes, and crises remind us how fragile this invisible system truly is, and how easily belief can give way to doubt. Yet through it all, the world continues to weave its net of promises. New technologies arise: telegraphs, ticker, tapes, credit cards, and computer screens, each one spinning the threads of trade a little farther, a little faster. The hum of money, now more invisible than ever, pulses through the veins of cities, across oceans, and between people separated by half the globe. Pause for a moment. Breathe in the quiet reassurance that, beneath all the dazzling innovation, the heart of money is still trust. The slips of paper in your pocket, the numbers in your bank account, the glow of a screen at midnight, all are echoes of the first handshake, the first cowrie shell, the first coin. Money is not just metal or ink. It is hope. It is confidence. It is the story we tell each other, again and again, that value endures, that tomorrow will honor what we build today. So, as you close your eyes and listen to the gentle rustle of paper, the distant hum of cities awake and asleep, remember, money is not only what we hold, but what we believe. Its true strength lies in the quiet promise that, in a world of endless change, trust can turn a feather-light note into a fortune, and a simple idea into the foundation of civilization itself. Let this thought comfort you as you drift toward sleep, a lullaby of ledgers and promises, of fortunes made and lost, and of the timeless human desire to make tomorrow brighter than today. As you settle in for the final stretch of our journey through the story of money, let the past and present mingle gently like fading notes of a lullaby. You've wandered through riverbank markets and marble palaces, watched coins gleam in torchlight and slips of paper pass quietly hand to hand. Now, we step into the hush of the modern world, where the very shape of money dissolves into something as light and swift as a thought, a world of modern banking and digital money, where the old dream of trust moves quietly, invisibly, from coins to code. Imagine a city at night, its towers aglow, a million windows blinking softly against the darkness. Far below, banks stand solid and silent, their stone columns now mostly symbolic, for the heart of money has moved to hidden vaults and humming servers. Step inside, and you'll find not the gold and silver of old, but streams of data, numbers, flickering on screens, promises encrypted into the very fabric of the digital world. The transformation began gradually, with each new wave of invention. Checks and credit cards replaced bulky cash. Wires hummed with financial messages, transferring fortunes in the blink of an eye. Banks, once rooted in a single city square, grew vast and borderless, able to connect people, businesses, and dreams from every corner of the earth. Imagine a family in Tokyo paying for a home in Paris with a tap of a finger, a student in Nairobi buying a book from New York, her phone buzzing softly with confirmation. Money has become as mobile as our wishes, as fast as our curiosity. But the greatest leap came with the birth of digital currency, Money made of pure code, invisible, intangible, yet trusted all the same. It began with the credit card, a little rectangle of plastic that let us promise payment with a signature or a swipe. Then came the rise of online banking, where balances and transfers lived not in vaults, but in clouds, protected by passwords, known only to a string of glowing numbers and names. And then the world changed again. In 2009, a mysterious figure called Satoshi Nakamoto released the first Bitcoin, a currency with no coins, no central bank, no government behind it. Instead, it lived as a string of numbers, kept safe by cryptography, and sustained by the belief of those who used it. Other digital currencies followed, each promising freedom, privacy, and a new way to imagine value. Can you picture it? Miners, solving puzzles in the silence of midnight, creating money not from gold or paper, but from pure computation. People sending money across continents without ever touching a bill or a coin, only trusting in the mathematics of the blockchain. This new world is dazzling and daunting. With every click and tap, fortunes rise and fall. New markets emerge overnight, old systems adapt or fade away. Governments struggle to keep up, writing new laws for a world where value is weightless, borderless, and always in motion. For some, digital money is a revolution, a promise of power returned to the people, of privacy and possibility. For others, it is a riddle, a risk, a challenge to the stability they have always known. Yet, for all the change, one thing remains unchanged. Trust, whether stamped on silver, inked on paper, or written in lines of code, money is still a story we agree to tell together. It is our faith in one another, our belief in the future, our quiet hope that no matter how the world transforms, something precious will pass safely from hand to hand, from heart to heart. As you close your eyes, let the digital river carry you onward. Imagine all the value of the world, hopes, dreams, effort, love, dancing in pulses of light, spinning through servers, shimmering in cyberspace. The currency of today and tomorrow is not only in your wallet, but in your mind and memory, your word and will. Let this comfort you. Even in a world of blinking screens and cryptic codes, the oldest magic of all still lingers. Money, in every form, is a promise that we will honor each other, build together, and trust that tomorrow will bring new wonders yet unseen. Sleep now, as the hum of invisible fortunes and the quiet code of trust cradle you, carrying you onward through the night and into the bright, boundless morning of history's next adventure. Now, as the story of coins and codes fades into the background of your dreams, let us journey to a time and place where myth and history dance together. In the twilight, ancient Greece, a land of marble and olive trees, of gods and mortals, of legends whispered on the windswept plains. Here, beneath the soft shimmer of distant stars, we find the woman whose beauty launched 1,000 ships, Helen of Troy. Close your eyes and imagine the gentle lapping of the Aegean Sea, the scent of salt and wildflowers on the breeze, the music of lyres drifting from palace halls. In this land, stories are not merely told, they are lived, etched into stone, sung by poets, painted in the colours of sunrise and longing. And among all these tales, none is more enchanting, more tragic, or more enduring than that of Helen. Helen was said to be the daughter of Zeus himself, born from an egg after the god took the form of a swan and wooed Leda, queen of Sparta. From her first breath, Helen was marked for legend. Her hair was said to shimmer like gold at dusk, her eyes as deep as the sea, her grace so perfect that even the goddesses envied her. Suitors came from every corner of Greece, each one dreaming of winning her heart and her kingdom. But Helen's life would not be one of quiet happiness. She was wed to Menelaus, king of Sparta, yet the world around her was full of intrigue, and the gods themselves were never content to let mortals rest. When Paris, prince of Troy, arrived in Sparta, the story says that love, or fate, or the whim of the gods, drew Helen to him like a moth to a flame. Some tellings say she left willingly, swept up in a passion that could not be denied. Others whisper that she was taken by force, a pawn in the endless games of men and immortals. What is certain is that Helen's departure set the world ablaze. Kings and heroes gathered, oaths were sworn, and a fleet of 1,000 black ships sailed east across wine-dark seas to bring her home. Thus began the Trojan War, a conflict sung by Homer in the Iliad, immortalized in marble, echoed through centuries by poets and painters alike. Yet beneath the thunder of chariots and the clash of spears, Helen's own voice is quieter, more complex. Was she a victim or a villain? A woman driven by love, by longing, or by the cruel hands of fate? In some stories, she regrets her choices, mourning the destruction her beauty has caused. In others, she stands serene and untouchable, a symbol of the irresistible power that beauty and desire hold over mortal hearts. Can you see her standing on the ramparts of Troy, gazing out to sea as the smoke of war rises in the distance? Imagine the sorrow that must have filled her heart, the knowledge that men would die for her, that kingdoms would fall, that all of Greece and Troy was bound together by a single, unanswerable question. Was it worth it? Did Helen wish for a quiet life? Or did she know from the beginning that her story would be larger than life? Her name forever entwined with longing and loss. Helen's beauty became a legend, but her story is more than just a tale of envy and war. It is about the ways we are shaped by forces beyond our control, the expectations of others, the whims of fortune, the silent tug of destiny. Her name is a poem, a sigh, a caution, and a dream all at once. As you drift towards sleep, let Helen's story remind you that history and myth are not so different. Both are woven from longing, both are painted in the colors of hope and regret. Both teach us that beauty can change the world, sometimes for joy, sometimes for sorrow, always leaving a mark that echoes through the ages. Rest now with the soft music of ancient Greece in your heart, and let the image of Helen, radiant, mysterious, eternal, carry you gently into dreams where every story shimmers, every legend breathes, and every dawn promises a new beginning. As Helen's shadow lingers softly in your dreams, let us follow the path her legend set ablaze. The epic story of the Trojan War, where myth and memory intertwine in the mists of time. For centuries, the tale of Troy has enchanted poets and scholars, wanderers and warriors, each one drawn by the question, did this great war truly happen, or is it only a story spun from the silver threads of longing and loss? Let us drift, for a moment, into the world of the Iliad, Homer's timeless epic. Hear the roar of chariots on dusty plains, the clang of bronze on bronze, the cries of heroes whose names echo still. Achilles, mighty and doomed. Hector, noble and tragic. Agamemnon, cunning and proud. Imagine the campfires flickering beneath Troy's high walls, the faces of men longing for home, the trembling hands of those who know tomorrow may bring only sorrow. But beneath the poetry and the thunder of battle, a quieter truth waits to be uncovered. For centuries, many believed Troy was only a myth, a place invented to teach lessons of fate and honor, never marked on any map. Yet, as the modern world awakened to the allure of the past, some dared to wonder, what if there had been a real Troy and a real war hidden beneath the dust of forgotten ages? In the late 19th century, a self-taught dreamer named Heinrich Schliemann followed the clues in Homer's verses to the windswept hills of what is now northwestern Turkey. There, he unearthed the ruins of a city, layer upon layer, each one telling a different story. Walls tumbled and rebuilt, gates scorched by fire, treasures buried and forgotten. The site, now called Hisarlik, revealed a place that could have inspired the stories sung by generations. Scholars sifted through pottery shards, charred beams, and ancient weapons, searching for the echoes of a siege that lasted 10 years. They found signs of destruction, burned stones, arrowheads, skeletons, evidence of a city that fell to violence more than once. Yet, even here, the lines between myth and memory blur. Was this Troy, the Troy of legend, or another city with its own story of triumph and tragedy? Was the war for love, as the poets said, or for wealth and trade, as the merchants and kings might have known? The truth lies hidden in broken walls and silent graves, refusing to be claimed by certainty. Still, the story endures. The wooden horse, the secret night attack, the fall of a city to cunning as much as courage. These images shine like constellations in the dark sky of history. Even now, the ruins of Troy draw travelers from across the world, each one hoping to touch the bones of legend, to stand where Achilles may have raged, where Helen's beauty may have been glimpsed from the towers at dusk. What makes this story so powerful? Perhaps it is the way the Trojan War unites opposites: love and hatred, heroism and betrayal, destiny and choice. It is a story where gods and mortals mingle, where every victory carries a cost, and every loss is remembered forever. Or perhaps it is the simple, timeless longing to know that what we dream is not just fantasy, but a memory carried forward, waiting to be rediscovered. So tonight, as your breathing slows and your heart grows still, let the echoes of Troy guide you deeper into sleep. Picture the sun setting over the plains, the shadows stretching across broken towers, the hush after battle, when all that remains is the song of the wind. The secrets of Troy may never be fully known, but in their mystery, we find something precious. A reminder that the greatest tales are woven from truth and wonder both, and that even the ruins of dreams can give us hope. Rest easy now, as the dust of ages settles gently around you, and know that somewhere, in the silent earth, the past is waiting. Always alive, always ready to awaken with the dawn. And now, as the final echoes of battle fade over the shadowy plains of Troy, let your mind drift gently toward the end of our journey. A quiet place where stories rest and history sighs in the soft hush before dawn. You have traveled far tonight, through candlelit cathedrals, secret gardens, ancient markets, and legendary cities. You have wandered with popes and queens, with merchants and warriors, with dreamers and lovers who left their footprints on the endless sands of time. What remains when the tales are told and the lanterns are dimmed? Perhaps only this: the enduring power of legend and the quiet wisdom that history offers to every soul willing to listen. Legends, after all, are more than just stories to lull us to sleep. They are bridges between past and present, between myth and reality, between what we hope and what we fear. They remind us that every life, no matter how humble or grand, is part of a much larger tapestry, woven with care and longing by countless hands. Helen's beauty, the splendor of Babylon, the cunning of traders, and the ambitions of kings, all are chapters in the same great book. They whisper that even our smallest choices ripple outward, touching strangers and shaping the world in ways we cannot see. History itself is not a straight road, but a winding river. It bends and loops, doubles back, sometimes disappears beneath the ground, before emerging, brighter than before. There are moments of glory, and there are shadows. There are triumphs built on hope, and mistakes born of pride or misunderstanding. The people you have met tonight were not so different from you. They loved and dreamed, feared and faltered, searching for meaning in the chaos of their age. Their stories survive because we need them. To understand ourselves, to forgive, to marvel, to laugh and to mourn. As you sink deeper into the quiet comfort of night, consider this. Every legend you have heard was once a living moment. Every myth was once a hope or a fear. Every fact a heartbeat in the chest of someone who longed to be remembered. We keep these memories alive not because they are perfect, but because they remind us of what it means to be human. Let yourself relax, floating in the gentle tide of memory. Picture Helen's wistful gaze, the walls of Babylon bathed in gold, the silver gleam of ancient coins passed from hand to hand. See the faces of pilgrims and poets, of lovers and rebels, each one searching for connection, for wonder, for home. This is the magic of history, a spell that weaves together the voices of the past with the dreams of the present. It teaches us to listen, to question, to honor those who came before, and to cherish the stories we add in our own time. So, as you drift towards sleep, let these legends keep you company. Let them be your lantern in the dark, your gentle music in the silence. Remember that you are part of this endless story, and that every dawn brings a new page, waiting to be written with kindness, curiosity, and hope. Sleep softly now, beneath the watchful stars of history. You have traveled far, and you are home. And now, as the softest hours of the night arrive, let the stories of history settle around you like a warm blanket. The candle has burned low, and the ancient world, with all its mysteries and marvels, slips quietly into the background of your dreams. You have wandered far, across empires and gardens, through palaces and markets, beside heroes and poets, and each story has gently carried you closer to rest. In these final moments, allow yourself to release every worry, every question, and simply float in the comfort of knowing that you are part of something timeless. The tales we have shared tonight are not only echoes of the past, they are gentle reminders that wonder and wisdom are always waiting, just beneath the surface of sleep. History, after all, is not meant to be hurried through or memorized. It is meant to be felt, savored, and sometimes simply listened to, like the distant music of a lullaby played long ago. If your eyes are heavy now, that is exactly as it should be. Let your thoughts drift one last time to marble halls and ancient towers, to green gardens and golden coins, to a beautiful queen on windswept walls. Let the voices of popes and poets, of dreamers and builders, slip softly away, leaving behind only peace. Thank you for sharing this quiet journey with me tonight. If you enjoyed wandering the gentle pathways of boring history for sleep, please remember to like, subscribe, or simply return whenever you need company in the small hours. Your presence here matters. Every listener, every dreamer adds a new thread to the tapestry of stories that bind us together. As you breathe in and out, let your mind become weightless, like a leaf on the surface of a tranquil river. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and joys, but for now, you are safe. You are held. You are surrounded by the patient comfort of ages past. So sleep well, dear traveler. Dream kindly. And know that, in this quiet corner of the night, history is always ready to welcome you home. Good night.